Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are talking about Tesla's Q3 earnings date that has now been scheduled, a Model 3 update from Fremont, electric vehicle maintenance, a few tweets from Elon, and some news from Rivian as well. Before we get into the news, I just wanted to point out that yesterday I had the opportunity to be a guest on the Pomp podcast and talk a little bit about Tesla, the stock, Battery Day, disruptive technology in general, and a bit about Tesla Daily as a podcast and channel as well. So that should be available on all major podcast platforms. If you just search Pomp Podcast, it's episode 403, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the YouTube video as well. I really love having the opportunity to do things like this because I think it exposes a new audience to Tesla, and our audience here is really helpful with that because if these content creators know that this group is going to go and listen and like and comment and engage with the episodes, generally that's how they're going to judge how successful an episode is. And if it's successful, they'll probably want to have me back on and we can continue the conversation. And then other creators see that and then maybe they also want to have a conversation about Tesla as well. So long way to say, check it out. And thank you for those of you that have. All right, first up, yesterday, Tesla announced the date for the third quarter earnings call and shareholder update letter. That will be after market close on Wednesday, October 21st. And of course, before that, we'll have an episode going through all of my estimates for the quarter. So the conference call will be at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, and the shareholder update letter should come out sometime before that, usually pretty close to just after market close, generally within that first half an hour or so. I saw a lot of discussion online yesterday about whether or not this earnings report was early for Tesla. The 21st would be, I believe, the earliest day of the month that they have held an earnings release, and people are always curious about that because generally if a company has good news, they want to get that good news out, so an earlier earnings report date could signal that, versus if you have bad news, you're probably going to not be as excited to get that out and may wait a little bit longer. However, in this case, I don't think the date is early. This is the date that I expected as we had talked about a few episodes ago. Instead of looking at it as being the 21st, we need to look at what week that date falls in because generally Tesla releases their earnings on the Wednesday of the third full fiscal week after the previous quarter ended or after the deliveries were reported. The normal exception to that is Q4. That's always 1 week later because Tesla is preparing their full year results after Q4, so they take that extra week to do that. Otherwise, it's consistently that third week, which this October 21st date is also. Sometimes people get confused about this looking back at historical dates because Tesla actually used to take 1 full week longer for every quarter, but they did shift that up for Q3 of 2018, and then since then, the timing has been consistent for every earnings report with one exception, Q1 of 2020, because of the coronavirus situation at that time. So that one was 1 week late, but otherwise we've been on the same cadence for the last 2 years, including now Q3 2020. So in short, I don't think the date is early, and I'm not reading into it as far as the results. All right, next up is a topic that is obviously just way less exciting than going through the earnings date report history. We may have a Model 3 update. For the last 4 to 6 weeks, we have been hearing rumors out of Shanghai that they would be updating Made in China Model 3 to have the Chrome delete that the Model Y has, an updated power lift trunk, and maybe a couple other updates as well. Well, now we're hearing from Electrek that we may be seeing that same update in Fremont. Electrek is calling this a refresh. I don't know that I would go quite that far, but we'll have to see what features really make it if this does indeed happen. Electrek says, quote, "We have seen pictures of the new Model 3, but we are not able to share the pictures at this time in order to protect sources. The pictures confirmed several updates to the Model 3 produced in the US, including a Chrome delete to the exterior trims," end quote. Electrek is also reporting that there are a couple updates on the interior, specifically to the center console, as well as a, quote, "new upholstery on the top of the vehicle with what appears to be a slightly darker material," end quote. A powered trunk gate, as I said, similar to the Model Y, and then also new windows for improved sound dampening. Electrek says, quote, "The timing of deliveries of the Model 3's updated features is unclear, but sources say that the new version is rolling off the assembly line in Fremont," end quote. That does seem to be the case. A few people have been by Fremont and they have spotted Model 3s outside with a Chrome delete trim. One person capturing some of these images was Holmars on Twitter, with a few very clear images of the Chrome delete, as well as the new center console, which, though it is still partially covered for shipment, does seem to have some new stitching along the side, implying that that material used on the side of the center console has been updated from, I think it was a sort of plasticky component before, to the vegan leather interior used throughout the vehicle. So there definitely does seem to be some updates happening here. The extent of the updates still is a little bit unclear, as well as the exact timing. I think a big question that a lot of people have is if the Model 3 has been updated to use the heat pump technology used in the Model Y, which could potentially boost the range a little bit, especially in colder weather. The other thing that I'm a little bit curious about is if we'll see any updated batteries. Obviously not the 4680s yet, that's probably quite a ways off for the Model 3. But remember back in July we had reporting that Panasonic was working on updating the energy density for the 2170s out of Nevada, with Reuters reporting at that time, quote, Panasonic has already developed technologies resulting in a more than 5% increase in the energy density of 2170 cells. From September, the firm will start converting lines at its factory in Nevada that it operates with Tesla as it prepares to further boost the energy density of the cells, Takamoto said, end quote. Takamoto there is what Reuters calls Panasonic's US EV battery chief. So it's possible if Panasonic has that new energy density improvement up and running that we may start seeing some of those cells in the Model 3 or the Model Y from Fremont somewhat soon, perhaps as a part of this sort of mid-cycle update. If some of these changes are already happening, hopefully we'll see an update to the design studio soon so we can all have the official answers. But in the meantime, if you are about to take a delivery of a Model 3 or even a Model Y, keep me updated on whether you see any of these changes on your vehicle. The best place to do that is probably on Twitter at Tesla Podcast or in the YouTube comment section. Next up is Autopilot. We have a couple of updates here from Elon on Twitter. The first is around phantom braking. I know a lot of people experience this from time to time when using Autopilot. That refers to a braking event when there isn't really a reason to do that. But somebody asked Elon on Twitter about that, and he said it should be fixed in the latest wide release, and that we won't need to wait for the full self-driving rewrite for that to happen. Some folks on Reddit have commented that they do have that latest firmware, which is 2020.40.3, and that they have still experienced phantom braking, but it is also possible that Elon is referring to the next wide release, which there should be more of before the Autopilot rewrite version happens, because remember that rewrite is going to roll out through a beta process, through just a limited release and then early access program before going to wide release. Speaking of that rewrite, Elon replied to Tasha Keeney of ARC on a thread about autonomous driving, saying, quote, Waymo is impressive, but a highly specialized solution. The Tesla approach is a general solution. The latest build is capable of zero intervention drives. We'll release limited beta in a few weeks, end quote. So a couple things here. First is Waymo. Waymo is mentioned because yesterday they announced that they are expanding their Waymo One service, which is their autonomous ride-sharing service, but previously all rides had a vehicle operator monitoring those rides. So today they're expanding what was previously the Waymo driver sort of beta program, which operated under NDA, to now be a part of that Waymo One service, meaning they are opening up fully driverless rides to those Waymo One riders, which of course that is still a closed group of people, but apparently those people can now share that experience and bring along friends and family. So it does seem to be some progress here from Waymo, but again, this is a very limited area in Phoenix, which is why Elon here says impressive, but a highly specialized solution. Still, good to see that progress, and it'll be fun to see some of those videos from that Waymo One service shared. But then the second part of this is Elon saying that the latest build is capable of zero intervention drives. Very exciting to hear that, but at the same time, that obviously doesn't mean that all drives will be zero interventions, or that even most would be. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a full self-driving feature set. For example, maybe it can't do zero interventions if there is a roundabout. So extremely exciting, but probably at first best to keep expectations a little bit in check. That being said, somebody did ask Elon, quote, hypothetically, will this new FSD update be able to drive/summon across states, given it's all connected and not blocked by any borders? And Elon said, quote, yeah, provided we do our Metal Gear Snake auto coupler, end quote. So this is something we haven't heard about from Tesla for a long time, but they had previously showed a demo of this automated snake charging system. This was all the way back in 2015, and we haven't really heard a whole lot about it since then, but as a follow-up, somebody also asked, will we ever see the automatic snake charger? And Elon replied, yes. It's great to see that automated charging system is still in their plans, and I think just even referencing it continues to emphasize that renewed confidence in an autonomous robotaxi situation from Elon. Next up today, I want to talk a little bit about electric vehicle costs in comparison to internal combustion engine vehicles. I think most of us have heard the argument over the years that electric vehicles have fewer parts and therefore are easier to maintain, but I'm not sure that I've seen a ton of data out there on that. Well, now we have a little bit of data coming from Consumer Reports, which writes, quote, survey results involving hundreds of thousands of CR members show that EV and plug-in hybrid drivers pay half as much to repair and maintain their vehicles. Consumers who purchase an electric car can expect to save an average of $4,600 in repair and maintenance costs over the life of the vehicle compared with a gasoline-powered car, CR's study shows, end quote. And remember, those numbers are before accounting for fuel savings, which can also be thousands of dollars over the life of ownership. Throw in some savings from Tesla insurance, and yeah, I think a $25,000 Tesla is going to take a lot of market share, regardless of autonomy. All right, last quick thing for today. Yesterday, Amazon unveiled the delivery van that they will be doing in partnership with Rivian, really just showing the details of how it's going to look. They still expect 10,000 on the road as early as 2022, they say, and 100,000 of these by 2030. So no change there from what we have previously heard, but for those of you that are interested in this project, I did want to at least pass that along for you. So that will do it for today and for the week. As always, huge thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up for notifications. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and I'll see you next week for the Monday, October 12th episode of Tesla Daily, which should be an exciting one. Definitely tune in. I'll see you then. Thank you.